setting amazing goals and achieving them. So a lot of people have a lot of goals in life, and I've always been fairly goal focused. But one of the things that I at least feel have helped me big time is very frequently not telling other people about them. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, business owner, and you have business goals, you obviously want to communicate them to your teams and the people who are trying to make them happen. But I'm talking primarily about personal goals here, right? And what I've always found is that I've had a significantly easier time achieving goals when I haven't communicated them to people around me. So really what happens in many cases, like let's say I'm not a smoker, but let's say you're a smoker and you tell everyone like, oh, I'm going to stop smoking. And everyone kind of looks at you and, yeah, I've heard that story 20 times before. And, your friends kind of start like, oh, do you want a cigarette? Do you want a cigarette? They're kind of trying to push you a little bit. And, you constantly feel judged. You put out this thing, I want to do this thing, and you're constantly feeling everyone watching you, right? I've really found that when you're doing things, when you're doing goals like that, you can often get a lot further if you do it without telling people. So some examples from my own life. I lived in the UK at some stage, and, I wanted to become a little bit healthier. I wanted to start running, and I changed a few things at the same time, but basically I ended up getting up significantly earlier every morning. And when we're saying significantly earlier, that was instead of getting up at 6 a.m., I would get up at 4:30 a.m. So very, very unusual and very different. Now, if I told people like, oh, in the future, I'm going to get up at 4:30 and I'm going to go run an hour every morning, people would be like, haha, that's stupid. That won't last a week, blah, blah, blah. And it's not even in a mean way. Right? It's not because they don't want to support you and stuff like that, but it's just, a lot of time people reflect themselves on you and they're like, I couldn't do that type thing. What I've always done instead is that I go do it. And then, when I've done things for a certain period of time and I feel comfortable with it, then I tell people, oh, this is not my goal. This is what I'm doing. Right. And for example, with the running, like when I told people, oh yeah, I get up every morning and I've done so for several months. I get up at 4:30 and I go running for an hour, right? Or jogging or whatever you call it. Like you put yourself in a position where you're no longer as vulnerable, because what happens to most people is that when people give you feedback and when people are like, particularly people close to you, when they kind of like, oh, that's a bad idea, or you shouldn't do that. Again, a lot of the time they're projecting their own fear. They're kind of saying, oh, I wish I could do that, but, that's a good reason I'm not doing it. But really there's not. But a lot of the time that's how they project on you, right? But really I've found it so super useful to do that through my whole career. Initially, when I first started out working, I was only 18 when I started working. And, very, very quickly, I got a goal to become a manager. And the same thing, like I didn't go out and tell everyone. Definitely there was a few people that knew, like my boss, and, there's a few other people that I was trying to get some help and support from, and they knew. But it wasn't like I was 18 walking around telling all my friends, oh, I want to be a manager, right? Because for me, it puts a certain pressure on you. Now, first of all, you might actually change your mind at some stage. And you might say, oh, I thought I was going here, but actually I want to go here instead. And if you do change your mind with things, which most people do sometimes, you don't want to have to like stick to something just to show people you can do it, right? But really for me, it's very much been about both my personal flexibility, but also not getting all that noise from people. Because wherever people are supportive or wherever they're kind of pushing you back, right, or they're trying to push you in a different direction, and a lot of my entrepreneurial friends would know this, like when you tell your family, I want to start my own business, I want to be an entrepreneur, etc., there's a lot of people like, oh, well, that's dangerous, it's a big risk, and they have all these hesitations around it. And really, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting out a business, you don't need that. You really don't need people constantly questioning you. And some people are really good at just not caring what other people say and think. But really, I think even if you feel you're that kind of person, sometimes you might actually take things to heart, particularly if it's people saying things that you really respect. And again, people generally, not always, but generally people want the best thing for you. And as human beings, one of the things we're very keen on is to try and avoid risk, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, well, that sounds dangerous, or oh, this could happen. Again, if for you it's the right thing to do, I generally recommend people to actually go do it, or go do a piece of it before you start telling other people. Because a lot of the time, what happens is when you actually tell other people, what happens is you manifest the vision in your mind, and sometimes you actually start celebrating even before it happens. So if you're like, yeah, I'm gonna stop smoking, and yeah, I'm so good, I'm gonna stop smoking, and even if your friends that support you, you're like, yeah, I'm so good, I'll go and reward myself. I'll have a cigarette for stopping to smoke or something like that. Like people would do the weirdest thing to kind of reward themselves and feel they're already there, right? But the problem is the second it then gets a little bit hard, it's so much easier to crumble because you already had a lot of positive feelings around making a change. But when you have to actually follow through and do it, it quite often becomes quite a bit harder. So again, people are different. So I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but I'm just saying that this is something that have definitely helped me a lot in life, both personal decisions, so on, and occasionally in businesses. If you're looking business-wise, if you're looking to do something that's very, very different from the ordinary, and something that's very unique, you might try it out as well. Because sometimes, at least, as I said, get to a certain level, show people, this is what I am doing, instead of this is what I'm going to do. Because if you tell people this is what I'm going to do, again, they feel they have more opportunity to stop you. Whereas if you're actually already halfway there and you're like, this is what I'm doing, it makes it a lot more difficult for them to actually, how do you say, put a negative spin on things.